Hello there, and welcome to the Fat Tail Daily video. Your regular host, James Woodburn, is unavailable today, so I'm filling in. I'm Callum Newman. I'm one of the editors here at Fat Tail, but today we're talking gold because we've got our gold editor, Brian, on the line. And of course, the interest in gold is really high. It's one of the best, if not the best, performing commodity of the year. So, Brian, just to start out today, what's going on with gold right now, price wise?
Hey Cal, it's good to see you and update on what's happening with gold. We had a very good run this year with gold starting at about 2,050 US dollars an ounce at the beginning of the year and went up to as much as 2,780 US dollars an ounce. And I think that would be about 35, almost 40% increase. Had a bit of a pullback last month after the US election results came out and President Trump is confirmed the winner. The US dollar staged a significant comeback, and as a result, gold pulled back to just over 2,600 US dollars an ounce, and then formed what I hope would be a base for the next stage in rally, as we're talking gold's just below 2,660 US dollars an ounce, and that would translate to 4,130 Australian dollars an ounce.
Well, it's interesting to look at what happened on the market. I saw the gold, some of the certainly the bigger gold stocks rip up in October. They really just flew up, like Regis and West Gold, Ramelius. Some like the move was like 30% in a few weeks. It was a, a big move up. Then they sort of cooled down again, but at the same time, the Aussie dollar gold price is still where it was. So, is this just normal volatility in the gold space?
I think the reason why we had the pullback recently and now it's forming, now it's kind of pared back half its correction from November is because what we're waiting for, and I've written about this the last 2 3 weeks, it's about silver. Now, silver has gone up from about 26 US dollars an ounce at the start of the year, 27, I think about 26, 26, 27 US dollars an ounce. It broke above 30 US dollars an ounce for the first time in 12 years in around May. And instead of holding its ground, it pulled back to about $28 an ounce until the Federal Reserve made its first
Hmm?
interest rate cut in September, and then it broke above 30, finally held the ground, and it went up to as much as 34 US dollars an ounce uh, in October, just as gold and gold stocks had a great run, and which is what you mentioned with all these larger gold stocks rising 30-40% in 2 months or so. If you look at the smaller end of town, the explorers, some of the better performing explorers really ripped up during that time, and the better ones have held their ground despite the pullback. They're actually um, similar to most of the gold stocks. They are still maybe 15-20% down from their peak in October. Are we expecting that this could continue to run? Everyone should look at whether silver will break out above 35 US dollars an ounce and hold those grounds. Should that happen, I think we will see a major run with gold stocks, especially the gold explorers and the early stage developers.
We allude to in your article today, chatting with Murray Dawes, our trader at the Christmas party last Friday, um, on the idea that even though the bigger gold stocks certainly have done well this year, that the explorers, the more speculative end of the sector, hasn't done that well in 2024. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's interesting when you talked about this. If you had joined our conversation last Friday, I'm sure you have been the more upbeat one, and you would have probably made Mara Muzz and I feel quite not incompetent, but like, well, what's the problem? And so that's why we were in our corner and making sure that we don't mention you, otherwise it will make us feel really bad. But you've made some really good picks actually, and I'm actually glad. What I liked about the last 6 or 7 months was noticing that I wasn't the only one, along with James Cooper, who were talking about gold stocks. When you and Muzz joined in and recommended all these gold stocks, I knew that yep, the time has come. Finally, after quite a long wait. Now, with the smaller end of town, why is there a significant difference between the larger gold stocks like Northern Star, Evolution Mining, Genesis Minerals, uh, Ramelius Resources, Capricorn Metals, etc., and the smaller end of town, the ones which are below $100 million market cap, is, as I said, gold had a very good run. People would have done very well just buying gold. In the last 4 years, since 2021, gold's gone up. Gold's doubled. Uh, so therefore, for like over 4 to 5 years, to invest in something which has not that much volatility and you could double your wealth, then that's probably a nice place to be. And then gold stocks, they had a very rough period over these last 4 years because the oil price went up from about
Did
40
yeah.
US dollars a barrel in the beginning of 2021 when Joe Biden uh, were like took the White House, and then they ran with the Green New Deal. They wanted to phase out fossil fuels in preference for renewable energy, electric vehicles, or trying to cancel petrol-driven vehicles by 2030 or 2035. And then you had the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which led to the price of oil going up to as much as 120 US dollars a barrel. The profit margins, the operating margins for these gold producers fell from about 42% in 2020 to as low as 29%. And this is the industry average. So you can imagine how many of the smaller producers were actually operating on a very thin margin, and after
Mm.
including um, administrative costs, etc., they were actually burning cash. So people who were keen on buying gold stocks were making losses on gold producers. They were also dumped the smaller end of town. And even though the last year and a half we've seen a recovery with the operating margins, I think gold was probably a safer place to be. And as the larger gold producers started recovering, then people started streaming back in. But gold explorers, being in 3.5 years of bear market, would definitely need a lot more convincing for the ordinary investors to jump in. And I think that's why they're waiting for silver to break out.
Well, you mentioned you're alluding to how difficult it's been in the last couple of years, but you don't have an easy job when you're looking at one sector. Um, that it's obviously hostage to the sentiment that's overruling that whole sector the whole time. So
Yes,
it's certainly not easy what you do. But the good part now is that we've got roaring cash flows with the big stocks, and you allude to this in your article too, that they're now in a position to get aggressive with buying up some of the projects. Right? That's what you're positioning for, basically.
yes.
And is there a particular feature for these developers or explorers that you look for? Is it all about ounces? Is it about the deposit? Is it about where they are? Obviously, with sovereign risk now becoming much bigger, I mean, people might be interested in that. Actually, are you happy to go to Africa, or do you just want Australia, Canadian tier one jurisdictions?
I have played with companies in Africa. I've recommended in the Australian Gold Report West African Resources 3.5 years ago. It was my first recommendation to my investment newsletter service, the Australian Gold Report. And I also had recommended Tieto Minerals to my premium newsletter readers back in July 2022 when it was trading at about 37 cents. The company was taken over by stealth by the Chinese companies in earlier this year. and my newsletter readers, some of them made a small profit because we also I recommended that they take some profits earlier last year as the share price went up, and then it had a dip because the company faced troubles with ramping up their Abuja mine when it brought it into production. So Africa
Yep.
is a rough continent to play with, but at the same time, if there are very compelling opportunities in these companies, if they're seriously undervalued, I would I would actually venture into them, but I will also remind my newsletter readers to be very careful because they do trade at a discount because of sovereign risk. In terms of
Yep.
in general, what I recommend for my premium newsletter readers in Gold Stock Pro, I like deposits which are confirmed there's actually ounces in the ground, preferably shallower ore, and the grade is very important because if you have relatively higher grades, it's easier to start a mine than if it's lower grade. Because even if you have a very large deposit body, but if the grade isn't high enough, you need a large processing plant to bring it to production and make it profitable. And the cost of building a processing plant with all the facilities will probably run in the vicinity of over $250 million. And most of these companies, because currently their market value is about $50 million and below, they will have to dilute themselves very heavily. I prefer companies that have a processing plant already, if possible, because the value of this infrastructure is about $80 million and above. And sometimes, like if you include that, and these companies are valued at 40-50 million dollars at the moment, you're literally you're literally holding shares in a company that have negative enterprise value. Like the
Mm.
the other either the deposit is worth something and the processing plant is just giving it away to you, or on top of that adding cash. This company is one would say quite a slam dunk investment. Of course, there are risks because there are many years sometimes uh, between where they are and generating their first dollar in selling their gold or silver or other metals below the ground.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly from my perspective, I think gold is one of the most exciting areas to be in 2025. Speaking of which, do you, within your services, you mentioned silver there. Are you willing to look at silver stocks and other metals, or is it purely gold with everything that you do?
Even though it's called Gold Stock Pro, I am in the precious metals area, and I know a lot of people love silver. I personally like silver as well. I have accumulated quite a bit of silver bullion, and I know that a lot of precious metals enthusiasts have done the same because I believe that silver is seriously undervalued. Last year, I wrote an article about whether silver is really as undervalued as many YouTube precious metals commentators have claimed that silver should easily be over 100 US dollars an ounce. I provided an alternative view that maybe not $100 an ounce because the cost of mining our silver is about 20 to $25 an ounce at the moment. And if silver is worth $100, you can imagine how big a bonanza these companies are going to make. Now, going back to the question on recommending silver, I do have 3 or 4 recommendations on Gold Stock Pro, and I think 1 or 2 companies that mine or explore for silver in the Australian Gold Report. Silver silver miners on the ASX, there's actually very few of them that actually produce because silver is a byproduct, and the abundance of silver in Australia is actually not very much, despite what people are made to believe. Most of the silver are located in Mexico, South America, and parts of Africa. Most companies would therefore list on the New York Stock Exchange and
Hmm.
also the Canadian Stock Exchange. So for those who are looking for silver stocks, it's best to look overseas. And personally, I'm cautious about those because not everyone has access to a suitable broker.
Yep. Alrighty, well, I think we can leave it there. Obviously, if you want to read Brian's article, you can do so in the link below. You can also check out his Australian Gold Report if you're interested in precious metals. And I think the way things are shaping up next year certainly should be. So, Brian, thank you for joining me today. And I'll be in the hot seat tomorrow. And you'll be back with Woody next week.
Thanks very much, and God bless.
Thanks for tuning in to Fat Tail Daily. If you're ready to take a new approach to building wealth, avoiding the same old mainstream ideas and investigating new market trends, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss a single video. And as a thank you, we've got a free report just for you. It is packed with actionable insights that show you how to capitalize on an alternative investment idea that you'll unlikely find anywhere else. You can download it right now by clicking on the link in the description below. So, if you're ready to discover strategies that the traditional market just doesn't offer, grab your free report. Until next time.